Hey, it's Mr. Repka, and we're going to be talking about complex fractions. We have been talking about fractions for a week or so now, and we're going to continue with fractions. And remember, a complex fraction is just multiple fractions in the same problem. As I'm taking notes, you're taking notes. And let's look at this, 4/5 over 2/3. You should remember that we're able to turn this into a multiply problem by using the reciprocal of the second fraction, or the denominator of the original fraction. So notice what happened. Our 2/3 became 3/2, and our divide became multiply. You notice we can reduce a little bit. 4 and 2 become 2 and 1. Our final answer, 6/5. So that's a basic complex fraction. Let's keep that in mind as we do some more. Let's try this problem. 2 divided by 3/2 minus 4/3. So not only do we have a complex fraction, we actually have three fractions. And we have a subtraction problem. So let's work this out. Let's focus just on the bottom. 3/2 minus 4/3. We know that if we're adding or subtracting, we need common denominators. And what do you think our common denominator is in this problem? It is 6, the common denominator of 2 and 3. How do we change our fractions in order to get a common denominator of 6? Well, the first fraction we took times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So 3 times 3 is 9. What about the 4/3? We did a times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 2 is 8. And the top just stays the same for now. Let's go ahead and subtract, and we get 1/6 on the bottom and a 2 on top. What did we talk about before? We need to reciprocal that second fraction and turn it into a multiply problem. And the question is, how are we going to write the 2 in front? We could just write it as a 2, or if it helps, let's put it over 1. Now we multiply straight across when we multiply. So 12 over 1, or just 12. Let's try another one. Let's do 4 over 3/4 minus 1/2. We always need common denominators when we add or subtract. Common denominator here is 4. The first fraction doesn't need to change at all. The second fraction is like a times 2, so 2/4. And we can subtract 1 over 4. What do we do from here? Our top 4 just becomes a 4 over 1. And our bottom 1/4, again, reciprocal, also becomes 4 over 1, 16 over 1, or just 16. What if that whole number was in the denominator? I'll tell you, it's the same exact process. We need common denominator in the top. That would be 16. First fraction doesn't change. Second fraction is times 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 1 times 8 is 8. That gives me 11 over 16 for the top. And the bottom is a 3. But how are we going to handle that 3? Remember, this 3 can be a 3 over a 1. So now we see when we do our reciprocal, it's multiplied by 1/3 and multiply. 1 times 11 is 11. 16 times 3 is 48. And that's our answer. Let's try another. 3/4 minus 2/5 all over 6. Go ahead and try to work this one out on your own, then watch the rest of the video, see if you have the right answer. You should have done a common denominator of 20 in the top. How do we change 3/4 to 20? That's times by 5. That gives me a 15 for a numerator. How do I change the second fraction to a 20? That's times by 4. That gives me an 8 for a numerator. So far we have 7 over 20 all over 6. Remember that this 6 is a 6 over 1. 7 over 20 times 1 over 6. That's a dot for multiply. And nothing can reduce 7 over 120. Warning, in this section you will get answers with crazy fractions. Unfortunately, that will happen. Let's try another problem with 3 fractions. And just like factoring, there are 2 ways to do this. I will show you both. One way is how we've been doing it. We're going to get a common denominator of 8 and 6. And we should see that that's 24. And if we don't, we can list our multiples. 8 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And look for something in both lists, and that would be 24. How do we go from 8 to 24? Well, that's by times by 3. 3 times 3 is 9. How do I go 6 to 24? That's times 4. 5 times 4 is 20. Put that over 3/4. Add them together. 29 over 24, all over 3/4. Do our reciprocal. That means times by 4/3. Oh, look, things cancel. That 4 becomes a 1. That 24 becomes a 6. That makes these numbers much smaller. We can leave it as an improper fraction. Again, we're going to get weird fractions. That's okay. Let's show it the second way, though. There's a second way to do it. This way, we kind of keep it as fractions. We keep our numbers small. The second way, you'll see our numbers get bigger, but we don't have fractions very long. So it's up to you which one you don't want to deal with. So now the first step, instead of keeping a common denominator of just 8 and 6, is I need a common denominator, or at least common multiple, of all 3 denominators of 4, 6, and 8. And again, we can list our multiples if we need to. And we should see that each one has a 24 in the list. All right, why do I need that 24? What I'm going to do is break each fraction apart and multiply it by 24. So off to the side here, I'm going to go 3/8 times 24. Oh, those cancel, so that's really just 9. So where the 3/8 used to be, I'm just going to write a 9. Do the same thing for the 5/6 times the 24. Those reduce to a 4 and a 1. 5 times 4 is just 20. So I'll write a 20 where that 5/6 used to be. And the 3/4, multiply that by 24. Those reduce to a 6 and a 1. 3 times 6 is 18. And look what happens. 29 over 18. Numbers are bigger a little bit, and it takes some multiplying. But if we go back to our other side, 29 over 18 is our answer either way. Do I care how you do it? Absolutely not, as long as you get a right answer. But what if we have more fractions? We're used to more fractions, so let's do 3/4 minus 1/3 all over 5/9. So now we're just going to see 3 fractions. Fractions everywhere. The process is the same. common denominator, this time in the top. Common denominator is 12. How do I change? That's by multiplying by 3 to get a 9. How do I change the second fraction? Multiply by 4 to get a 4. And that gives me 5/12. All of that is over this original 5/9. Again, change to multiply, reciprocal or flip the bottom fraction. This time I get a lot of things to cancel. The 5's cancel to 1's, the 9 to a 3, the 12 to a 4. Final answer, 3/4. Let's show that problem the other way. 3/4 minus 1/3 all over 5/9. We need what would be the common denominator or the least common multiple of all three denominators. And this might take a while. Listing the multiples of 3 times 6 times 7 times 8 times 9 times 10 times 11 times 12 times 13. Let's do 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, and 40. 9 would be 9, 18, 27, 36, and finally, I get a number in all three lists. Multiply each fraction by that number. 3/4 times 36, 36 and 4 reduced to 9 and 1, 3 times 9, 27. Do your 1/3 times 36, that reduces to 1 and 12. 12 times 1 is just 12. 5 times 9 times 36 reduces to 1 and 4. 5 times 4 is 20. We have a subtraction, 15 over 20. And here we'll see that we actually can reduce to 3/4, which is what we had the other way. Again, it does not matter which method you choose. Whichever works better for you is absolutely fine with me. All right, let's try one last type, and this type will have an add subtract. Okay, let's try one last type, and we're going to have add subtract on both the top and the bottom. I will do it both ways on both problems. First way I'm going to do is common denominators. 15 for top and bottom. On the bottom, my common denominator is 9. So I get 18/9 and 2/9. And I'm not showing or explaining everything. You should have the hang of this by now. When we add, we get 10/15 on top and 20 over 9 on the bottom. Do our reciprocal. Hey, look, stuff reduces. 10 and 20 become 1 and 2. 5 and 15 become 3 and 5. When I multiply all that together, 3 over 10. What if I did it with the least common multiple? Well, what I'm going to do is take the biggest number, 15, and I'm going to list those multiples. 15, that's not a multiple of 9. 30 is not a multiple of 9. 45 is a multiple of 9. So I just have to multiply everything by 45. So if I do 7 over 15 times 45, those reduce to a 3 and a 1. 7 times 3 is 21. In fact, I'm going to move that over a little bit. My next fraction, 1/5 times 45, that reduces to a 9 and a 1. 1 times 9 is 9. On the bottom, 2 times 45, Now that's a big number, but that's okay. I can handle it. 90. And my last fraction, 2 times 9, 2 over 9, I'm sorry, divided by 40, times by 45. That's a 5 and a 1. That's 10. Add them together, 30 over 100, and that easily reduces over 10. Doesn't matter which way we did it, we got the same answer. And again, it is up to you. Let's try one more, and then we will be done. We're going to do 2/3 plus 3/4 all over 1/5 plus 1/6. I will do it both ways. Common denominator way. Common denominators would be 12. My new numerators would be 8 and 9. And again, if it helps you, you can write your times 4 over here, because 3 times 4 was our 12, and our times 3 over here, because 4 times 3 was our 12. How did we, down here, common denominators would be 30. So maybe you want to write your times 6 to help get your numerator, and your times 5 to help get your numerator. Add those together, 17 over 12, all over 11 over 30. Flip those around, 17 over 12 times 30 over 11. And I actually do get some reducing here. I can take a 6 out of 12 2 times and a 6 out of 35 times. Nothing else looks like it's going to reduce. 2 times 11 is 22, and 17 times 5, 17 times 5 is 35, carry the 3, 85. A weird fraction, but that's okay. What if we did it the least common multiple way? Well, here I'm going to list, I don't want that M like that. Here I'm going to list my multiples of 5, because those are easy. Let's see, 10, 15, 20. 20 is not a multiple of 3, 4, and 6. So 25 won't work. It can't be any of the 5s because 4 and 6 are both even. So let's go by this. 30. Nope, 4 doesn't work. 40. No, 6 doesn't work. 50. No, 4 doesn't work. 60. There we go. They all work for 60. And again, if you need to make your list with all numbers, you could do 3, 6, 9, etc. 4, 8, 12, 6, 12, 18. But I'm going to do some of that in my head. 60 is the key number. So let's go ahead and multiply. 2/3 times 60. That reduces to a 20 and a 1. 2 times 20 is 40. Do the 3/4 times 60. That reduces to a 15 and a 1. 3 times 15 is 45. 1/5 times 60. That reduces to a 12 and a 1. 12 times 1 is 12. And 1/6 times 60 reduces to a 10 and a 1. 10 times 1 is 10. Add them together and look at that. The exact same answer. Good deal. So I hope this video helped. I hope you took notes. Now it's time to do some problems on your own.